Hello everyone, Don here with the update on the Corsair progress update, I guess. So I came down to the airport today. Today's Sunday. I'm not sure what date it is, but anyway, 8, 9, 10, 11, somewhere around there. I came down to put my tail wheel back together. My last video, I ended up pulling the tail wheel back out because I needed to machine this block right here to put the snap ring in there. So I took this all home. With that off, that's what's hold the wheel in. So the whole thing came out, so I took the whole thing home. But anyway, I brought it back, put it back together, hooked it all up. So that's done. But then I found a problem with my system. Here's the cable that works the tail wheel. And right now you can see it's about 3/4 of an inch too long. I thought, well, maybe those brake line hoses I used were compressing, but that's not the case. The rudder centered and the wheel is pinned where it's the cable is locked in the pin on the fork, so it can't move. It's just this side is long. So what I think happened was when I put it together, the piece of stainless steel tubing that comes through here goes into that piece of plastic block. It must not have been in. It must have been just touching the front of the block when I pulled this tight, put this on there and crimped it, because I had to do that on site. So, and then today when I'm working on that tail wheel, I seen some slack in the housing down there, and digging into it, that's what it looks like happened. I didn't have that all the way seated when I compressed this on. So my intentions were to take this out and do some taxiing today, but because I don't have one of these on hand, I got to make it. I'll have to go home, cut up a new one, bring it in, cut this off, and then re-crimp it back on here and put it back together. So you see what I'm talking about here. This bushing, this little ferrule, aluminum ferrule is crimped on. So I got to shorten this cable up about 3/4 of an inch. So I got to cut that off, make a new one, slip it on there, crimp it on, put it back together, and then I'll lube the cables up at that time. And then my other thought is to keep these from potentially falling out of here. This ferrule is designed to where it'll set into the back side of here, but I'm going to drill a small hole big enough for a cotter pin across the top of this thing all the way through it. I'm going to put a cotter pin in there and spread it, so that way this cable can never come out if this thing was to go a little slack. You can see that little step right there. That little step fits right in the back side of that. I machined a step in there, so that little step fits in there. So, but if the springs are compressed, there's a chance that this might pop out of here. If I can get her in there, I can't see very well. But anyway, once that's in there, I'm going to drill a hole, put a cotter pin through there, so this can't come out if it ever slack ever got into the system. So that's all I can do with that today. I got to make a new compression ferrule, and then I'll tie that all back together. So, and then I probably mentioned in last week's video I wanted to pull the cowlings and give everything a look over, see how it's holding up. My major concern was this muffler. Was it going to burn the paint off of the oil pan, and was it going to roast my motor mount because it's not wrapped? I originally had it wrapped with this stuff, but when I took it off, it was deteriorating. This here's already came loose, but I'm going to tear this old stuff off, and I'm going to buy some of the newer stuff. You know, the stuff's probably like $100 a roll, but this stuff kind of dried out pretty quick, and you could tear it. It's just cheap fiberglass, dyed fiberglass, and you can see all the dye came out of it. But that new stuff they have is kind of a silver, coppery colored stuff, and it's like $100 a roll. You know, it's enough to do like a V8 set of headers, but I want to get this wrapped, so that'll help insulate from burning the paint off of this motor mount up here, and then possibly burning the paint off back here. But this feels good. There's nothing there. But looking around, everything I can see looks fine. I checked the oil. The oil is perfectly full, right up to the marks. Looks good. The oil is nice and clean. I've got 3.7 hours on the Hobbs meter since this thing's been together and the engine's been running and hooked up to it. So I've got coming up on 4 hours of run time. So this thing, I figured it'd be a good time to check everything out. And the only thing I've found so far was when I was looking, this hose here, water coolant line, this is the return from the radiator. The engine coolant goes out through this hose, goes down to the wing, goes through, and then comes back out here, and then goes over and ties in to the one coming out on the right wing, and then they both go into the thermostat housing. This is kind of a reverse flow compared to a normal car. The thermostat opens and lets the water into the motor, and then it goes out the top and circulates back through. So this was kind of hanging down, and you can see there's like a tiny drip of something on the bottom of that hose. See it right there. And I reached up in there, touched it, and here it's oil. So I started looking around, and the bottom of the oil pump is right back in here. It's tough to see, I can't even get my fingers in there, but there's a pair of hex lugs up in there. It's the bottom of the oil pump, and they're wet, and the oil's dripping off of that, and then the air flowing through here is apparently blowing it back onto this hose, and it's dripping, and it's running all the way down through here, and this all has a real light, faint coat of oil on it. But I thought maybe it was the oil pump, or what would be the front main seal on the engine is the harmonic balancers up in there, but all that's dry. It looks like it is possibly just the oil pan. There's no gasket on these oil pans. It's just a silicone RTV. So what I'll probably have to eventually end up doing is dropping the oil pan to reseal that, wash it down, reseal it, and see if that takes care of the leak. It's a very, very fine leak. Like I said, this thing's got almost 4 hours of runtime on it, and that's the first I've noticed any oil, and that's probably from the high-speed taxiings, but everything's a little kind of dusty, dirty. But so the oxygen sensor, everything's fine. This hose was drooping some, so I adjusted this and tipped it up more. I may try and tie this back, tie it into this high point of the hose system here. So yeah, that goes right to the thermostat housing. That's kind of lets the air out of the system. So, but I might tie that up. But the main concern is in order to do this pan, I got to pull the exhaust to get to the bolts, which will allow me to do the wrapping. And then when I pull this part to do that, I'll pull that pan off. And then my other thought was, this is the water sump for the fuel system. This is the pressure side of the fuel system. And I thought it would be better to put it on the return side, which is residual pressure, return. There's not really any pressure there, just free flows back to the tank. But the return side of the line actually goes into the bottom of the tank. And then I figured it might have a better chance of water coming out there than through the fuel pumps, because the pumps would have to pick it up, push it through here, and then it would fall down through this tube. So the easy fix would be to get a longer piece of it's just brake line tubing, get a longer piece, bend it around, take the T-fitting off this side, put it on that side, put straight fitting on this side. They're bulkhead fitting. Just swap them over and put a longer line in, do the same thing. So, but I sumped this today when I took the cowl off, and there's no sign of water yet in it at all, but it's full. It does seem the fuel would actually have to flow up through the fuel pumps down to the bottom of the tank and then come out up here into the motor, which goes uphill again. Both the hoses are higher than the bottom of the sump. So, but right now I think I'm just going to leave it alone. I can just move it over to that side if I want, move the whole thing over. Instead of trying to bend a new line, I can unhook it, swap the fittings, and have the fitting come out over there, because this is where the cutout in the bottom of the cowling is anyway, that big cutout down there. So it wouldn't be no big deal. You can see it's just A-Dell clamps screwed right to these mounts here, cowl mounts, so it'd be easy to swap it over. But the biggest thing is I'd probably have to drain the tank in order to swap that, and I have to move the tank out of the way to get to the nuts on the bulkhead fittings to swap the fittings. So anything I got to do, you got to tear shit apart. So, but I can't see anything, no wire problems anywhere. No hoses leaking. Everything looks good. I'm really happy. The only thing I caught was just that little bit of an oil leak there, and it's more of a very, very light seep, and it's probably just from running and splashing around at higher RPM. But I'm going to go ahead and look into getting this material, the good stuff, and I'll pull this all apart. The muffler will be wrapped separate from the manifolds, because the manifolds just slip into the muffler, so you kind of got to put it all together to put it up in there. But the battery looks great. Fear of that cracking or anything. This again is powder coated white, so now with cowling off. You can see the back sides, and there's no sign of that being any problem of cracking or breaking yet. Again, that, this engine does run so nice. The most of the vibrations that feels is, from running across the ground out here. And then you running on the taxiways and such out there, it's a lot smoother than a grass field would give me. So the coolant levels a little low here, but this is an expansion tank. It's meant to expand. There should be, I probably have to get me a piece of hose on here and run that down to the bottom of the cowling in case it expands to the point where it has to come out. But so far we haven't had any water leaks anywhere. When this was setting over at the flight school, there was some dripping out here that the Greg saw over there and put a carpet under there, so there was a wet spot, and it was probably antifreeze. But since I pulled it out of there over to here, nothing's leaking. And I've run it hard enough, and if it was going to leak, I'd see it by now, but it isn't. So, alright, I'm not going to be able to do anything other than put the cowlings back on. I'll have to go home today and get that new ferrule turned out. Come back, I'll probably come back tomorrow, put that back together, and this will all be back together. I'm happy with the way it looks. I'll see about ordering up the material for the exhaust, but I wanted to get it out and do a little faster high-speed taxiing with it today, but it's not going to happen. For me to drive all the way home and back, it's an hour and a half, and I'm just not going to do that. I'll come back tomorrow after I gather up a few things, get that tail wheel sorted out, and this will be closed up. All I have to do is come back tomorrow and fix that cable, slap it back together, and I can take it out and do some time runs with it. So that's all I'm going to do with it today. I'll just throw these cowlings back in. I'll come back tomorrow and finish out this video and give you guys something to see Monday night. So, alright, I'll be back in a minute. Alright everyone, I'm back now, but today's now Tuesday instead of Monday. I worked on this Sunday, as you can see on the beginning of this video, and I was intending to come back yesterday, Monday, which I did. I came back to shorten up that cable on there, and then I noticed that the outer housings of the stainless steel braiding had pulled out of their little stainless seats as well on the one side. I had made a new one when I came down to replace the one side I seen was out. I made them deeper to hold the braided cable assembly into it, and then I did a 15-degree taper into it, so if any of the fraying from the braided cable sticks out like it always does, it would allow me to crimp it as it goes in. So it worked out great. So after I got that in and hooked the cable back up, cut the cable to shorten it, I was getting ready to crimp on the ferrule, and I said, let me do one last checkup underneath. And good thing, because the other side had pulled out as well. The one this side over here is hidden behind the retract motor, so you can't really see it. And when I looked in the other side, it looked okay until I shined a light on it, and it had popped out from the slack that was in this side. And I couldn't get it back in, so I had to give up for the day. Went home, made a new one, brought it back today, put them all back together, oiled the cable all up, hooked everything back up, recrimped the new end on, put it together. Now I just took it out and did a couple taxis out here in the taxi parking area. But today it's been raining on and off. Right now it's sunny, the clouds are breaking up, but it was raining the whole way down here. And if you can see the windsock out here, it's like a 20-25 mile an hour windsock. And it's staying pretty steady, but it is gusting up and down, and they were calling for like 23-degree gusts today, so that's pretty much what we're seeing out there. So it's fairly down the runway, it wasn't too bad. But anyway, I did manage to tax it along through here, back and forth a couple times, and then I took it out on the main taxiway, which they just finished coating. They filled, you can kind of see there, the blacktop. Looks like it was resurfaced, not with asphalt, but I think they used some kind of asphalt spray like they'd use in driveways. But it almost looks like brand new pavement, and the cracks, I can say, are now filled in, and it's really, really nice, probably smoother than the runway. So I took it down that taxiway, which is Alpha, down to the east end, and then I run it back through, turn around, went back, did it again, run it back through, and I was able to get up to at least 30 mile an hour with it. And the rudder, when I was moving the pedals, was pointing the nose where I needed it to go, so the tail wheel is helping to steer it, and the rudder's probably coming into effect also. But I didn't want to push it too much with this wind, because it comes and goes, kicks up and down. So that's going to be the extent of this week's video. I did, of course, mention that I pulled the engine apart, cowling and such. So I haven't looked at it yet, but I got to look at it tonight. See about this wrap. I think you can actually buy it at Advance and AutoZone. So I may stop at one of them and see what their price is on that wrapping for the header wrap. And then when I get that, I'll come down here and I'll pull the muffler off, wrap it, and while I have the muffler off, I'll probably get a good look and see where that oil leak might be coming from. But as you can see, there's no visible oil on the bottom of the plane at all. So it's just a very, very small leak. And I think the airflow from the prop through the cowling is just kind of spraying it around like a very fine mist. But nothing's running out of the cowling yet, so it's not crucial. So, all right, I think I'm going to cut her off there. I was really hoping to get some more taxiing in, but this rain keeps coming and going out here. It's been holding off about the last hour, but the winds have picked up, and they were calm for that today. And there's still chances of thunderstorms popping up all day. Yesterday it rained on my way home, so I wouldn't have been able to do much yesterday, even if I did get it fixed. So, all right, as always, feel free to leave any comments, questions, concerns. I'll answer them as they come through, and appreciate everyone taking the time to watch these videos. And I see they're getting some pretty good airtime at times, but you know, I know everyone's getting a little impatient. When's it going to fly? When's it going to fly? It's going to fly when it's damn ready, you know, when I'm damn well ready to fly it. It's a learning curve. Trying to steer with the brakes on this, it's not exactly as I would expect it to be, and I don't think it's quite right. But now I've got this tail wheel working, it's better. I'm getting more comfortable with it. I still have to add some brakes on slow taxiing to help start the turns, but when I get it up to speed, it seems to be working. It's doing what I want it to do, so it's feeling better. I'm getting comfortable with it, and I'm going to slowly work up the speed. So again, you know, I can't fly this yet. I don't have my biannual flight review done, so that's one reason why I'm not flying it. And the second is I still need to get a tail wheel endorsement before I can physically fly it. Even once I get my biannual, my pilot license, everything be current, up to date, and I can fly, but I just can't fly a tail dragger. So that's that, folks. It's going to take time. Again, I'm in no hurry. It'd be nice to see this thing fly before winter, and I may be there, but it's just a matter of the training is going to be far away. I mean, we're talking hour, 2-hour drive for me to go find anybody that can do tail wheel training in this area. And then it's not going to be free. So, okay, I think that's going to do her. I've done as much as I can today. I'll come back next weekend. Next weekend is actually looking great. I mean, like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's showing just all sunny days, 70s. So hopefully I can get out here and get some good taxiing going down the runway this time. Try and work up some more speed and see what it's going to take to get that tail off the ground. You know, like I said, I can taxi it all day long and not be in any violations that I know of. I'm just not allowed to break ground. So, all right, folks, stay tuned. I'll get this thing posted tonight. And oh, by the way, I did get a new LCD screen for this camera. I found it on eBay for $40 and had it in like 2 days, so I had it fixed before I came out here Sunday and started recording. So everything's back to normal with the camera, and we'll keep these videos coming. So stay tuned for next weekend. If I can, I'll see if I can get somebody to come out with me to work this camera on a tripod and see me coming down the runway with it, and see if we can get if I get brave enough to get the tail off the ground. So I can't imagine it's going to be much longer. I'm already pushing over 30 to 40 mile an hour, and the tail I can feel is light, but I don't think it's going to take much to get, probably maybe 40 mile an hour, and the tail should be lifting off on me. So, and we'll see what happens from there, and we'll go from there. So, all right, folks, I'll catch you guys again next weekend. So for now, this is Dino Done out.